Welcome to the May 11th meeting of the Senior Commission. Will the staff secretary please call the roll?
Renee Ambrosi.
Here.
Kathleen Crawford.
Present.
Michael Garibaldi.
Here.
Bobby Knapp.
Here.
Nicole Zamora.
Here.
Melinda Meeks.
So will Commissioner Garibaldi please lead us in the pledge?
I pledge allegiance to the flag
Of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Can the secretary read the procedures for addressing the commission?
Citizens addressing the commission during public comment are asked to approach the podium and are limited to 3 minutes unless extended by the chair, and must be regarding items that are not listed on the agenda and are with the city's jurisdiction. The Brown Act does not permit any action or discussion on items not listed on the agenda. No action will be taken on items addressed under public comments.
Thank you. I will now open for public comments. No public comments today. All right. So next on the agenda is the approval of minutes from our last meeting. Is there a motion to approve?
I move to approve the minutes.
I'll second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Thank you. So moving on to the next section. So we'll welcome new Commissioner Melinda Meeks. Jeff?
Yeah, good afternoon, Commissioner. My name is Jeff Nearson. I'm your Parks, Recreation, Libraries Manager. And so I just want to welcome Ms. Melinda Meeks to the commission. This is her first commission meeting as a new commissioner. So Melinda, if you want to say a few words.
Oh, thank you. I feel like this is a neat opportunity and kind of a fun way to be involved in the Roseville community. I grew up in Roseville, left home to go to college, came back with our family in 2004, and so we've lived here for years, and so we love it here, and so it's nice to be involved a little bit and kind of dip my toe into city government a little bit. It's kind of neat. So anyway, thank you so much. One other thing too. I also work with seniors. I work for Eschaton, and so it's kind of neat to be having an impact where I live, already having a mind for the seniors in our community. So
Fantastic. Well, welcome. We appreciate having you.
You're welcome. Okay, so our next agenda item, 6.2, Emergency Medical Services First Responder Fee Program with Fire Captain Michael Bradley. Welcome, Fire Captain Bradley.
Thank you very much. Are we ready? Can we advance to the next slide, please? So these are the topics that we're going to cover today. We're going to start out with a general fire department overview to talk about the full service, all hazards, all of the highlights that we do, current trends, some of the statistics that we have. We are going to talk specifically about the emergency medical services first responder fee, and then we are going to field questions. Can you advance the next slide, please? So the fire department, of course, first and foremost, provides fire protection for the community. We have each fire station is reflective of that community that it is in. The equipment that is on it is specific to be able to provide fire protection and emergency medical service to the area that it provides. So on the west end, we have some of our brush and grass units in addition to the engines that provide the house fire protection. All of our units, all 10 companies, 2 tiller trucks, and 8 Type 1 engines are all advanced life support, meaning they provide paramedic service. We provide hazardous materials response to the area downtown. We have a hazardous materials unit right out of Fire Station 1. We have a rescue task force out of Fire Station 7, which is up by Sam's Club off Pleasant Grove. And then we do public service calls all over, obviously all over the city. We do community outreach and public education, fire hazardous materials plan review and inspection services, and that's so that the community members and the businesses that are here are providing a safe environment for people to visit, and to purchase things from. Again, that's what they're doing the preparedness for. And then fire investigations. If we have a fire, we investigate those fires just to make sure that we know the cause, and if there is someone that we have to contact who may have started that fire, we will work with PD to work through that process as well. Next slide. These are some of the highlights from just last year. So we provided over 12,000 hours of mutual aid to some of the larger campaign fires. We participate in the Master Mutual Aid Program with the Office of Emergency Services, where we will take an additional engine and we will place that in service and put it on some of these other campaign fires. And what's important about that is that's 100%, those monies that we spend are 100% recouped. And we never take one of our in-service fire engines and pull where we are not providing city coverage. So this is an additional unit. We did the rail car training prop. We were just talking about that prior to this meeting, where we have a hazardous materials training school that and we offer these classes that are only offered in one other location in the country, and that's in Colorado. And so most of all of the first of the hazardous materials technicians and specialists are trained at this school in Northern California. Next slide, please. We also placed 4 new Type 1 engines that were replacing engines that were over 15 years old. We just did that last year. And then we purchased initially 2 Lucas devices through a grant program. And what the Lucas device is if you have suffered cardiac arrest, this machine will give continuous CPR from the moment we apply it until the moment we deliver that patient to the emergency room. And at the early part of 2022, we also purchased 8 more of those devices. So we have each one of our fire engines and each one of our tiller trucks now has that Lucas device. And in speaking with some of the other departments who have recently gone, or the last few years have gone to this Lucas device, their recovery rates for return of circulation and someone being discharged from the hospital, their statistics significantly increased ever since they purchased these pieces of equipment. So we are very excited. Roseville actually has, if you live in the city of Roseville, you have better than 3 times the national average of walking out of the hospital if you suffer cardiac arrest, for how our paramedic services and how we are positioned in this city. Next slide, please. These are some current trends, things that we're working on. There are some places in our city, we're working on Fire Station 8 because there are places in our city where the response time, which is very important and critical for both fires and emergency medical response, that we get to someone's home in a timely fashion. And Fire Station 8 is going to fill a void in our city where we're starting to have some extended response times. We're working on a dynamic move up and cover process, and that will be integrated to our dispatch. And what it basically is if we have several of our fire engines that are out on active calls, it will move other fire engines to position so that we're providing adequate coverage to the city. EMD Pro QA is another software application in our fire dispatch that will improve our ability to give emergency medical advice to the person who's called 911 prior to our arrival. And then the emergency medical services first responder fee, obviously, which we're going to talk about in just a second. Next slide, please. These are some of our statistics. So you can obviously see, read these. I'll just be very specific about the emergency medical service, the EMS calls. So in 2019, we were running about 11,000 EMS calls. There's a little bit of a lull in 2020. Obviously, we all know that's likely due to COVID and everybody with not wanting to go to the emergency room where they could contract COVID. And in 2021, our EMS calls were back up to over 11,000, just shy of 12,000. And this year, by projections, we're looking at running about 12,000 EMS calls plus. Next slide, please. So the Emergency Medical Services First Responder Fee. So what is that? So it is a cost recovery fee. And essentially what the cost recovery fee is for preserving paramedic service in the city of Roseville. So Roseville charges this user fee to offset the cost of providing those advanced life support and paramedic services. In Roseville, it is only charged if you receive treatment from us and you are subsequently transported to the hospital by ambulance. There are other departments in the area who charge regardless of what the EMS call is. Roseville has only chosen to charge in the instance that someone is transported to the hospital because we're just looking to recover the cost of running the EMS call. So fire department services have far expanded beyond what traditional taxes were originally funded for. So the tax base for property taxes was intended to basically pay for your fire protection. So fire stations, fire engines, and firefighters. But over the course of time, as there's been more and more of a demand for pre-hospital emergency medical service, that funding was never originally designed to cover that, and nor is it adequate for it. And so most departments across the United States who provide paramedic service have either taken over the ambulance service in their area if they're able to, or they are charging a cost recovery fee like we are. So the city implemented, the city wrote the municipal code and enacted this in October of 2020, and we began billing July 1st of 2021. Can I get the next slide? So why does a fire engine and an ambulance both respond to a 911 call for an emergency? So we both respond to a 911 call for a medical emergency because there's only about one ambulance for every 3 or 4 fire stations. And if that ambulance is tied up on another call somewhere, the next in ambulance is delayed by, 4, 5, 6 minutes. There's been times when we are working where we will have an ambulance responding from Colfax, from Auburn. And if you're familiar with how critical that time frame is to getting advanced life support or paramedic to your door, that is just not conducive if someone has had either respiratory arrest or cardiac arrest. And so the critical nature of a pre-hospital emergency medical service is that you get a paramedic to your door within a few minutes. And so Roseville, in most cases, Roseville fire engine or fire truck arrives on scene, provides the advanced life support and paramedic service, and usually treats for some period of time, it kind of depends on the call, until the ambulance arrives. And then depending on how critical that call is, the paramedic from the fire engine may maintain care and transport all the way into the hospital with the patient. Or if it is a less acuity of a call, they will transfer care to the paramedic off the ambulance and they will transport in. So Roseville fire engines and fire trucks are staffed with firefighters and paramedics. They're cross-trained. Most often, we have a minimum of 1 paramedic per engine and per truck, but oftentimes when they show up at your door, everybody who shows up at your door is a paramedic. So again, the time criticalness, we have already covered that. Can I get the next slide? So only those who receive life support services from us and are transported to the hospital by ambulance are charged this fee. Most commercial medical insurances cover this fee, and if you've received a bill, it may be because we've either missed your insurance or your insurance may not cover this. We don't bill ourselves internally. We bill through a third-party Whitman who most departments in this, certainly in this state and in the western half of the United States, use Whitman as their billing company. And then the city has a very generous compassionate clause which allows the fees to be waived in the case of financial hardships. And can we get to the next slide? And then for any information about that, I process all of these, any contacts or phone calls or concerns from citizens. You can reach me. I am the administrative battalion chief across at the fire department. You can reach me at this number directly. And I brought some cards, and I also brought some a fee waiver application if there was anybody who wanted to have a conversation with me, and I will be available after this meeting.
Thank you very much. So I want to open up to the commission for questions.
I have a question. Do you charge for just assist to get up? People call because they've fallen or they need assistance. Maybe the husband weighs twice as much as the wife and she can't get him up. Do you charge for that also?
So we do not.
Okay.
What is the charge?
It's, the price of it is $353.71.
And $353.71, okay.
And are the EMS calls increasing because the population is increasing, or is there other reasons why?
Nationwide, you have an increase in the use of emergency medical service. There's a variety of factors that are applied to that. The hospitals, I keep statistics on most of that, but population is certainly one of them. Risk factors for either an aging population at times or sometimes an indigent population like the homeless camps can also increase the call volume. Changing speeds can increase vehicle accidents. That'll also increase the call volume. So there's a variety of different reasons why it increases over time. But in the last few years, we tend to be going up about 8 to 10% call volume per year.
And do you know out of that 11,800, how many of those people were over the age of 65?
We do not, but I can certainly get that information to you. The age of patients is across the board. It's, there's so many varieties of medical issues that people have at every age, starting with, viable births that can, start as someone's even getting ready to have childbirth. We can, that's one of our earliest medical calls. And then, children that are diagnosed or call for either a seizure or low blood sugar. Oftentimes those early childhood diseases are picked up by pre-hospital emergency medical service for the first time. That's how they ultimately end up in the medical system and get diagnosed with either diabetes or asthma or seizures. So it could be, again, it's across the board.
What's the cost for a Lucas device?
I'll be able to get you that information. I'm sorry, I wish I had that particular piece of information, but we picked those up on a grant, and I'll get it to you.
I mean, like 1,000, over 1,000?
No, they're quite a bit more than $1,000. Yeah.
Okay.
I had a question regarding the fee,
Yes.
the waiver. So someone approached me about this question. Where would you apply for this waiver? Is there a form you fill out, or is it on the computer, or?
So there's several places where you can get information for this. You can go to the hub, and all of the same information that I've presented to you is on the hub, and also it's a direct link to the first responder fee email, to the dedicated phone line for it, and ultimately what they end up getting is a application. It takes about a minute or two to fill out. It's very brief.
Okay.
Very easy to fill out. I will help whoever is calling to help fill that fee waiver out, and then they mail it back in. It is ultimately evaluated and signed by our fire chief, and then they are notified. Then they're notified of the result of that, and then if their fee is waived, and oftentimes it is, we will call the billing office and stop the billing process.
Okay, because that is, I think, his confusion. So it's not at all on the bill. It's separate from the bill you get. You need to go to a different place. And my second question is, when you said if you do life support, are you talking about CPR or just assessing the patient by taking blood pressure and
So either, so a paramedic is able to provide life support services from anywhere from basic life support all the way through advanced life support, which brings in medicines, IV, EKG, 12-lead interpretation, defibrillation, all of those advanced skills. So anywhere in that spectrum or that level of care.
Okay, thank you.
Have you noticed, I don't know if you're taking that statistic, but in assisted living places, their help, no, not always trained, or if anything happens or looks bad or the patient or the client falls, they call 911. Has that increased the number of calls that you're getting that are really non-emergent? Keep track of that.
So the answer to your question is yes. It is at the discretion of the care facility if they call 911 if someone falls. And it is basically someone does an evaluation, whoever gets to that person first, they evaluate whether or not they feel like the risk is there for them to have to call 911 or whether they can put them back in the chair, back in bed. And if they are uncomfortable with it or they're unable to make that decision, then they usually call 911. And so, yes, we have had an increase in call volume from that.
Have you thought of maybe, because they're increasing and there's actually more and more being built, just because I work with the elder people in some of these places, they pretty much tell their help, just call 911, because we don't want to take any of the risk. And some of them appropriately so, and some of them, a good idea for them to be checked out, and others are just calls. And the people that are paying like $4,000, $5,000, and $6,000 a month get the bill, not the assisted living. Is there any thought about maybe billing the assisted living because they're the ones that are making that decision, not a memory care person, which I happen to watch a fight between two memory care. They called paramedics 911 to break up the fight and check them out. That might have been appropriate or not. It's hard because, the first thing they're going to do is call.
Right.
And it's really hard for them to make that decision. But I think the people should be trained a little bit on when to call and when maybe make a decision to help them up.
I do appreciate what you're saying, and if you don't mind, I would like, when the paramedic gets there, they have the discretion based on their assessment of that individual to whether or not they need to be transported to the hospital or not. Oftentimes there is medical control. They'll call the base hospital and have a consultation with the doctor who's there, and that will also kind of help make a decision whether or not someone should go to the hospital. So it's not an automatic, if you call 911, you're going to the hospital. Oftentimes it is based on, again, the evaluation and the assessment that the paramedic gives when he arrives.
I also have one other thing that maybe you can clarify, having experienced this whole thing and got a surprise, is a lot of people don't know until they call 911. I know it's put some places if you go look, but most of us don't look for that until it happens to us. So what is the best way for us as commissioners, knowing about the 911, who in our city, how can we get them the information? What's the best way to communicate this so they become more aware? And the reasons why you need to call 911, because I'm out there and about and we experience that people now are asking me, and it's like, don't not call 911. Well, I drove my husband, he had a stroke, but we were very close to the hospital. And I don't want to hear those kinds of things being a nurse. So what is the best way to get you're the communication. What is the best way to get it to people? Because so many people don't know until they're involved or they hear from a friend.
I can tell you what we've made all of this information obviously available on the hub and on on the city website where people can find this information. For folks who don't necessarily look at a computer or some of the emails, we've also written articles for Neighborhood Watch, some of the Del Webb communities we've written articles for also as well. And then we've done a lot of community outreach and meetings with some homeowners associations and some of the other groups of neighborhood associations that are kind of sprinkled throughout the community. And so we are wide open to any, I will take this information back, have a conversation with our chief, make sure that I reiterate to him what your request is, and that's that we provide this information as best we can. But we've tried to go throughout all of the media outlets that we have the opportunity to use to be able to get this information out there to make sure that people are aware of it.
Thank you, because I think that's part of our job, or at least part of our committee. We have one, is to make sure people are aware of what services are available. And I could think of some of the caregiver services, Seniors First. We use that a lot to make sure that we get the knowledge out there as far as why they need to call 911, not avoid it. When maybe assisted living places need to think about it before they call, or do some training or some education. I'm thinking on my feet at the moment is you're the best communicators, is how we can get, so people go, oh, I know about that, versus probably 90% of the people I talk to don't know about this, because it's fairly new.
Yeah, no, thank you. I will definitely take that information back and make sure that we act on it.
Go ahead.
If we've kind of moved off of the fee program question, I have one about the general work of the fire department. Your emergency operations center, how often does it get activated?
So the EOC usually gets stood up for larger scale incidents or disasters that are going on. It used to get stood up quite a bit before we did all the flood mitigation for the city. But usually that EOC is stood up minimum once a year to make sure that it's all the systems are operated on, and there's a drill that's usually put on that incorporates the use of that EOC. And other than that, there's no real good statistic on it, because it really depends on how significant the incident is that will require the EOC to be stood up.
Okay, and then as a follow-up question about public education, I'm aware of programs in other cities that are along the lines of citizens organized to respond to emergencies, public education programming, where they have 5 or 6 classes as part of looking at how to make your home safe, how to make your children safe, what can you do for older people. So that the citizens have an opportunity to participate in, maybe 4 to 6 classes that give them specifics about what would make their life more safe and, decrease calls to 911. So I'm not aware of the city having anything like that, but I would recommend that the fire department work with the library system and kind of try to set that up. There's a very large program in the city of Oakland that I was aware of when I lived in Oakland, and it's really an opportunity to help get citizens organized and have a way for them to take care of themselves. I mean, I was at a public meeting at a Del Webb facility, and the person said, well, we'll just go to a shelter. And I said, no, you don't want to necessarily use that as your immediate backup plan. It would be safer if you had water stored and some food and your batteries and your medication all together in a to-go bag, so that if you needed to evacuate, you could. But there are many, many instances where you would not evacuate. And especially for older people, being in a shelter, it can be quite traumatic and difficult for them. So I think that there's a whole public education component that maybe the fire department could be working to implement here in the city.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate it. I will definitely take that back. And that would probably be something good to work jointly with PD as well,
Oh, yes.
based on what you said.
That's an opportunity for us too in Parks and Recreation too, because I think that's a great idea. It's something maybe we can talk offline, and where you've seen this before and where we can get some models is in how we as a Parks and Recreation department, in conjunction with the libraries, collaborate with our public safety departments to maybe put on some classes, workshops, presentations to do exactly what you're talking about. Is just, here's some resources, here's some tips and tricks on how to be safe, and what you do around your home, and in the case of an emergency or a disaster, kind of how you can manage yourself at your home before your first call is where do I go for shelter? Like, how can we help you prepare yourself? So I think it's a great idea, and it's something that I think in Parks and Rec we can just talk through and kind of see how we put something together. So I think, I appreciate that, because it's kind of triggered my mind. I was like, that's a great idea.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And I have one more question. As far as your staff, your firefighters and your paramedics, what is their advanced training for working with patients who have dementia and Alzheimer's?
So usually in paramedic school, they will have, there will be one portion of that school that is dedicated to, it's kind of a broad overview of dementia, and it incorporates a whole bunch of different neurological issues that a paramedic could run across. And then from there, once they are in the field and they begin practicing, a good portion of that is put into application over the course of the experience that they have, and also the crew that they have. Again, one of the things about Roseville that makes it so unique is that usually the new firefighter that you have, that firefighter paramedic, is has the firefighter engineer and also the captain are all three paramedics. So if that new paramedic has not had some experience, oftentimes the engineer or the captain has, just because they have as they advance through the ranks, they've obviously been at the department for quite a bit longer. And so there is a way to tap into that experience on scene.
So besides utilizing the experienced, is there any additional training? Because things have changed when it comes to how we communicate with people who have Alzheimer's and dementia. And so those different types of communication are important for emergency services to understand.
And like I said, and you are correct, and if I didn't reiterate this adequately the first time, yes, there is usually a component that addresses neurological issues in paramedic school. And then beyond that, once they hit the field, currently there is not any classes that specifically address that on a regularly scheduled basis. I know that we've had them probably in the last 2 or 3 years. We've had a few classes on it, either that Sutter Roseville has hosted, or that our fire department internally, our nurse QA, has done a specific training on.
Okay, thank you. Any final questions? All right, well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
So we'll move on to our next agenda item here. Safe routes for older adults. We have Rebecca Espenshade and Allison Winter with us.
Hi, good afternoon, members of the commission. My name is Allison Winter. I'm an alternative transportation analyst with the city's Public Works Department in the Alternative Transportation Division. In the Alternative Transportation Division, just to give you a brief overview of what we do bikeway planning, we oversee the transit services, and we provide programs to support alternatives to driving alone. And we're here today because we would like to gather some feedback from the Commission on program efforts that could be implemented to support biking and walking for older adults, specifically in the vicinity of the Maidu Regional Park. And the reason we're looking at this location is because we are working on an active transportation program grant application for Dry Creek Greenway Phase 2, which is a multi-use trail that will go from Rocky Ridge to Old Auburn Road. Wow. And I have Rebecca here with me. She's our Safe Routes to School coordinator. So with the active this cycle of the ATP program, it's a statewide program, so all agencies throughout the state can submit. It's a competitive grant program, so we're competing with other agencies in the state. typically, there's a construction component you can apply for, and there's a non-infrastructure component. So we would be looking at a combination application that would cover the construction for the trail and also the non-infrastructure component, which is the program side. Typically, we do safe routes to school, but the ATP application this year, they've opened up an opportunity for safe routes for seniors. And I have Rebecca here. She's going to talk a little bit about what she does with Safe Routes to School and how that could translate to a Safe Routes for Older Adults program.
Good afternoon. Like Allison said, my name is Rebecca Espenshade, and I am the Safe Routes to School coordinator in the Alternative Transportation Division. So just to give you a little background, in 2009 is when the Safe Routes to School program made its way into the city of Roseville. And what it does is promote walking and biking through school. Generally, we focus on elementary and middle school age children, and it's just to try and encourage walking and biking to and from school as much as they can. Like Allison mentioned, recently more cities have been trying to implement safe routes for older adults as a way to facilitate healthy living and provide more mobility, physical activity, active opportunities for older adults. Some of the things that I do with the Safe Routes to School program now are school safety assemblies. We've been able to do a few this year. Just finished some today earlier. But we do, those kind of tie into what we were thinking as possible opportunities to bring safe routes for older adults to the city. So we could do some workshops on bike safety, on bikes that are appropriate for older adults that might be better, maybe skill refresher courses, things like that. Information on walking and biking to transit and from transit. Updated biking and walking maps and routes. We do have an interactive map that we use for the schools right now. It lists various points throughout neighborhoods and kind of gives an estimated time of walking and biking from certain points. So we could do something like that with older adults in mind. And then maybe starting or trying to put into effect some walking clubs, biking clubs. I know that Del Webb Sun City has a big biking group that they are very good with. So, maybe kind of trying to expand that and open that opportunity to other older adults in the city.
Yeah, and I would add too that if this grant is successful, the program activities would start in the year 2026. And it would, basically, we're looking at it to provide a framework on something that we could continue on.
So would this be part of the Parks and Recreation, all the programs that would come after the new trails?
Could be. I mean, it would certainly be a collaboration effort too. I mean, I know Alternative Transportation runs programs, but we have talked, as we talk through this presentation and bring in Alternative Transportation to the commission today, anytime we start talking, just like we talked earlier, it starts to trigger stuff in our mind going, maybe there's an opportunity to provide workshops, not in 2026, but today. What can we do today to, aside from Alternative Transportation's goal of getting feedback and applying for this grant, it's going, what can we do today to incorporate some of the ideas that they have talked about, and how do we put on some workshops and programs and work with Alternative Transportation to come out and do presentations out at MIDU maybe, or, to talk about safe biking or biking or choosing the right bike, or how do we collaborate with bike shops. So it just really spurred some ideas that I think there's opportunity there to look into.
Right, because there's an entire relationship here, even from what we just heard from the fire captain, is that people will have less injuries, need the EMS less if they walk more. I mean, there was one research done that said if you walk 27 blocks a week, it's going to save you $250,000 in medical expenses over the age of 65. And that's a huge number, right? So how do we really get the older adults in our community to get out there and start walking?
Yeah, that's part of the ATP application. We're looking at the health data, and there is that region that around the Maidu Park does have an elevated risk or percentage of adults that have cardiovascular disease. So we know there's a link to biking and walking that can reduce those rates.
Well, there's a big advantage because I live right in that area, that when you walk Maidu, it's divided, and most people follow the rules. But I've seen, because I walk over there, the problem sometimes kids don't always follow rules, and the school's right there, and you have them both coming at each other. So it's kind of like giving some safety things of what the older people who can't move fast need to do, and maybe some education with the kids to encourage them to ride bikes. Because more and more, because we were tandem bikers, you have to go the American River Trail because they go really fast. People know when they walk beside and our smaller trails, and a lot of them in that particular area come over to what we call the green belt by the school, and it gets very narrow. It's not as officially marked, and people are all over the place. So some of the education around safety for all age groups, so they're aware for older people. So there's some very courteous kids that will even stop when you can't, when people can't move as fast. It's obvious when they have a walker. It's not so obvious when they're maybe less steady. So again, back to, I love your idea through the library. I think that's a great idea because people go for lots of reasons. And this isn't just for older, it's for others. And the other piece is more and more people are getting electrified bikes. So there's rules around that because we see electrified bikes all the time on the trail. It says no motorized, but they tend to feel that those aren't motorized. Sorry, because I live there and I get run down by them. And you can go just as fast. I've been in a tandem, not motorized, and we can go really fast. So it's that courteous part that I think all age groups, not just older. And I love you're doing this, walk to school, because I think that'll appeal to the parents who are coming and it's like crowd control. I actually helped with it the other day because it was awful. I guess I had to get back to work and get kids. It was raining, remember? And it was chaos. You have to be courteous, and you just have to mention it. I don't know how you teach that. But again, don't lose the fact of all ages and how they can accommodate each other in doing this. Because more and more, like not even motorized, but I see more and more of the tricycles. There's the really fancy ones that sports ones. I don't know what you call them. They're not motorized, but they lay back and they pedal in the front and in the back, and besides just a regular bicycle, and they go pretty fast. So.
And I think intergenerational, like what Bobby's talking about, is it can bring in a larger crowd that some older adults may not come because it's seniors only, right? Or it might be a great activity for an older adult to do with their grandchild.
Mm-hmm. Great idea.
Yeah, that is a great idea. Thank you for that.
Good.
One of the ideas, my grandchildren go to Quail Glen Elementary, and they encourage walking to school, and then 10 minutes before the first bell rings, all of the students walk around the playground so that even kids who are dropped off have an opportunity to walk at the very beginning of the day for 10 minutes. And I think that really helps. The teachers like it because it helps focus the kids. But it's also good for the parents and the children to see that this is a great opportunity for them. I would really like to see some classes offered for seniors at 9:30 or 10 in the morning after school has started, back behind the Riley Library, where there's a great nature trail back there, and really introduce people to the fact that at that point of the day, it's pretty quiet. If you want to go somewhere and not worry about being run over by bikes and children, this is the right time to do it, and really encourage it. I walk in the Del Webb community, which, again, because they have a lot of open space, gives me that sense of openness and freedom. But I've been behind the Riley Library and find it to be equally good in terms of, having that peaceful, good oxygenation and this nice exercise that you can get. And yet you're you're very near people. If anything happened to you, I think many seniors just get fearful. What happens if I fall? So they don't start. Whereas a class, it introduces them to it, and then they become familiar, and they realize they're nearby. People are very nearby, so that there's not as much reason to be fearful, and encouraging them to really get out a little bit more. So I really hope that you're successful in adding some opportunities for seniors to experience that.
Yeah, for sure.
And one of the things that note, because I hear this from a lot of the older people, is do have benches along the way, because so many of them don't have the walker with the seat. I hear this all the time. So if you could incorporate some benches. People were so happy when you got more benches on the MyDo track, especially the inner track where a lot of the older people walk.
Melinda?
And that, I was going to mention the safety. I think for seniors, that's a big factor. We walk at MyDo, my husband and I, and there are a lot of dogs off leash. And, just educating people, I was thinking it'd be neat to have several kickoff events as this is being built, and maybe culminating in a really fun big event where you have booths for walking clubs and things going on with the city. I'm always up for a good event planning.
That's great.
And then like she mentioned the benches, but also maybe water stations, encouraging seniors maybe to be out during the morning hours and not the afternoon. And I like, I think around the city we have these big green signs with white markings that give instruction, and those would be great all along the way, kind of educating people and families too on how to be considerate and that kind of thing. So
Yeah, those are all great ideas. And yeah, some like the benches and the markings, when I mentioned the interactive map that we do for the schools right now, we had kind of talked about doing maps or routes for, for the older adult population, but having those markings on it. So, at this point there's a bench, or at this point there's, a resting place or something. And then, of course, I would probably, if I'm, working on the education and safety part, going to encourage, like I do with the elementary school, that you use the buddy system as much as you can too, and just, get out there with a friend and make it a good time.
Great.
Those are
And
great.
I believe the green signs you're talking about are share the trail signs. And that's part of the education that we do with the kids at the school. And then we also have a video on that. So if you go to our website, you can find that.
Any final questions? All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
So next on our agenda, we have 6.4. Laura Bell is going to talk about our older adult programming and give us an event update.
Hello, commissioners. All right, so I have a pretty quick update for you all today. Since our last meeting in February, we have added several new recreational opportunities to our FAB program. We are currently offering 23 different groups and activities, with more in the works all the time. Information on those programs can be found in our FAB newsletter. The newsletter is listed under seniors on the City of Roseville website, or folks can get a hard copy at any of our recreational facilities. In this past time, too, we have reinstated the FAB memberships and have had those active for about a month now. Our volunteers are back at the MyDo Community Center, and our senior lounge is open with coffee service as well. At the last meeting, we spoke about an opportunity for us to offer some smartphone classes through the California Telephone Access Program, but unfortunately that opportunity has fallen through. But as a result, we are offering a free drop-in tech help program at the MyDo Library on the first Friday of each month from 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. And folks can just bring their technology in and we'll help them out with whatever questions they have. We've only done it one time so far. We did help a few people, so that was pretty cool. And
What time was that from?
it's at 10 a.m. on the first Friday of the month till noon.
It's listed in your magazine on page 13.
A lot of people who want to come to that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then depending on how many people take advantage of that, we'll look at adding more days. It is a first come, first serve basis.
That's good.
And then finally, we had our inaugural Age Well Roseau event on April 7th at the Roseville Sports Center. It was from 8 a.m. to 2 p.m., and the event went very, very well. And we were excited to have over 300 people in attendance with 40 informational vendors and then 10 health and wellness workshops as well. So that that went well. That's kind of all the updates I have for today. Does anybody have any questions about that?
I would just like to make a comment as one of the volunteers at the Senior Commission booth. I thought it was very interesting, the people who were coming through. A lot of them were middle-aged, like in their 40s, and some of them had questions on behalf of their family members, and a lot of them were just kind of like, well, what's out there that I need to know about? So I thought it was really well done. I thought the vendors were very well prepared. The setup was nice, the room was great. So I really hope that we will be doing this pretty much on an annual basis, if not more often.
That's fantastic. I'll definitely pass that along to our event coordinators for that event.
How many people were in attendance?
Around 300.
And were there any surveys done to see what kind of information they were looking for?
We didn't have a survey. We did get a lot of really good feedback from folks, but we didn't do a survey, no.
What kind of feedback can you share?
We had some folks call and just said thank you for having the event, that they felt that the resources that they got were very helpful for them. So it was just really nice things like that. So.
Great.
So I attended as a vendor there, and it was one of the best put together events I've attended. It was professional looking. Even the little divider things you had between the booths were wonderful. It was really impressive, and the cost was very affordable. Some of the Sun City events are $300, and so it has to be really worth your while to spend that much, and this was really nice. I wondered, though, how you advertised it to the people who attended.
Yeah, so it was on our website. It was featured on some of our, I believe it was in What's Happening in PRL. I'm not 100% sure, but I believe it was in that. We marketed it in our facilities. It is something that next year we're looking at on doing a lot more to market it. I feel like we'll be able to do a better job at that next year and make sure that we get the information out a lot earlier.
Yeah, I think that was the only feedback I have is better attendance. I also think, too, even if you encourage the people who are the vendors to put that information out there and inviting their contacts, because we all there have a lot of seniors that we communicate with, and that could even stretch that farther.
I would add to that too. Yeah, I was thinking the same thing. Maybe in the vendor package that you guys are offering, allowing them to kind of give them like a little blurb, kind of do something. Maybe a social media output that's kind of easy for them that they could co-brand with as well too. Because as a vendor, I would have liked to have shared it as well too. But I think it was like, okay, it's coming, it's here, and then how do you get it out?
Boy, did we feel the same way.
Yeah.
I as I had to report back as well too, on why I chose to participate in that as a vendor. I did let them know. I was like, I think year after year, as this continues to grow, it's something that word of mouth is going to get out a little bit more on. The theme of everything is how do we communicate with people. Right. Those of us that want to know things because we are like looking it up ourselves. Those that are like, oh, I would like to know, but just don't even know where to look. They don't know where to look yet. So yeah, I think continued communication about it and giving your vendors an opportunity to share.
Yeah, that's something we can absolutely implement very
it'd be
easily.
really good because if you can get some, I talked to because of my connections with Kaiser, I talked to her and they just didn't, it was kind of like, they knew at Roseville, they knew the little group that was there, but they didn't put it out to some of their members. And you have so many members in both Sutter and Kaiser and UC Davis. If we could use some of the big vendors and letting their people know, by the way, there's a healthcare fair, because they get all the questions of the resources that are available. So, because they do the early discharge things. So I think you could get their interest. And I got some people that were kind of surprised. Oh, I saw it. I was taking a walk in the park and I saw that you had it. It's really great. I wish I could have told 3 of my friends, that kind of thing. So I think there's a great opportunity to get more information out there. And your idea of always a library, if there's some way, since you're in control of that everybody who comes in gets what it's about. Sometimes they read the 24 font and don't go beyond that. So.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think it was really important the commission was there as a presence. I enjoyed when I was there, at the booth, the ability to work directly with the public to hear what is of concern to them. And as we were talking before the meeting, some of it was way beyond what we're able to do, but it's important that they at least share it. And then I directed some of those questions to the Park and Rec, how they're taking information for this new plan. Because I kind of told them that, things will be changing, and these ideas, that's where you need to, direct them to. But this whole thing with the fire department came from
That event.
some man who was very, he was, I wish he kind of came today, because his story really touched us, the confusion, not knowing what to do.
I have a card from him.
Yeah.
Just because I'm doing the research for the Placer County seniors also. It's fairly new, and a lot of people move from other places. They don't charge. I reached out to Chicago people, just because of where I've been, Chicago people, Washington D.C. people, New York City people. It's not out and about. We seem to be one of the early Idaho people, I think. We are one of the early ones starting this charge. And I'm the other balance of getting the information to people, but also letting them know who they can connect with, what they can do to talk about, what we can do to decrease the number of calls that I see, because I go to a lot of the assisted nursing places, and they're taught, if anything looks bad, call 911, rather than kind of, help pick them up. Actually, I had one client, all she had to do was need help getting up, and they didn't want to do that. They just wanted to call 911. So there's some issues here that I think are presenting themselves. The other issue is, because I'm a Kaiser member, and I can just kind of say it, is you have to put an appeal in. Medicare doesn't cover it, so the healthcare center also. They don't automatically pay the paramedic, the 911. They will the transport, which is way more expensive, and all the aftercare. But the 911 care, a lot of them you have to put the appeal in, and it's very much right now, because they don't understand it, it's new. Some of the clerks reject it and some accept it. So it's new enough. There needs to be a lot more education. And then what I heard from some people, and these are stories that I'm collecting, not just Roseville, but, I got a charge, next time I'm going to drive from somebody in Tracy. I'm going to drive my husband next time. And we don't want that to happen. I mean, you want to think about whether you need to call. And I asked him about the assist, because so many times older people need somebody to help get their partner up. And we need to do that. There isn't a charge for that, but there is for the medical care, which is rightfully so. And I don't want people not to call because there's a charge. So getting it out about, and actually, who we just heard from Bradley, Mike Bradley, is letting people know there is an option to appeal, because when you get the bill, you have no clue unless you kind of get upset about it and start looking. So I've helped a couple of people, and we have a couple councilmen. I actually called every council member in Roseville, and Pauline, to call her out, Pauline Rakucci was so helpful and giving me information also, and sent me to Mike Bradley so I can give information out to others. So I'm out there in contact with people. So I think it's really important however we let people know so they can make good decisions around this.
Jeff, at this event that we had, I met a woman from the police department, and she's a neighbor of somebody's.
Mine.
Yes.
Linda Waggy.
Did I give you her phone number?
I do not recall.
I think I did, but we need to get it to you because she's a great resource on scams.
Okay.
And phone calls that are being made, and she could come in and talk to us about that, because I don't know about you guys, but I get phone calls from all over the United States, and I don't recognize any of those numbers. I've answered one or two, and they're trying to sell me something or do something, and there's a way you can block them on your phone.
Doesn't work very long.
No, because they go to a different number.
Yeah.
They buy a whole list of numbers that they can go to when one's, they can just keep dropping, and most of them are all throwaway phones anyway, so they can buy this. But people don't know about these scams. And I think this person is a good resource to go what are seniors, what's going to happen to them when people call. And they should know, never give out any information, no information on the phone whatsoever. So I'd like to get her in here.
Yeah, she's a great speaker. She's a neighbor of mine, and she does a lot with Neighborhood Watch, and she is part of the police department volunteer source.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
I can get you her number
yeah.
too.
Yeah. Do that, and then we can certainly work on next commission meeting and bringing her in. Absolutely.
Thank you. So we're going to go ahead and move forward. 6.5 on the agenda. Jeff, are you going to give us an update on our goals?
I will. I might need some updates from you guys. So just, as I said, every time we meet this year, we'll just kind of touch base on the goals, kind of to see, where we've progressed or where we've maybe accomplished these goals. And I said this earlier, and I love listening to, we had the presentation, and as you guys bring up ideas, I'm just writing feverishly of things that we can potentially implement, do. So one of the goals, so goal number one was to improve communication with the senior community about available programs, and then possibly a senior services fair. So as Laura reported, we did offer the Age Well Roseville, the inaugural, which was great. With any program too, with any event, we always debrief to kind of what was good, what was not so good, what do we want to improve, what do we want to do next time, and we've had that. And so we're super excited to kind of, as Laura said, look at ways to improve, to get the information out, and to offer this on an annual basis. And so if not more, it's a lot of work. So, but an annual basis and trying to find what is our sweet spot for the time of year that really adds the most value to the community. So we will continue to do that. But I think there's value in, as we're going to lean on the commission when we have these types of things to get it out through your networks too. And I think there's ways that we can do that as far as how we communicate to you to get you kind of updates of what's coming up and things that we might say, hey, this might be a good opportunity to get the information out because this is where we're looking to get new people, or just trying to spread the message of a new event or something that we certainly think there's value in information. So I think we can certainly do that.
I was just going to say, is that something that maybe can always be on our agenda, right? Age Well Roseville, why not? That's something that we all care about passionately, right? And if
Absolutely.
that's going to happen annually, then at least it's a topic. And if anyone is watching, right,
Yeah.
kind of out there right now, then it might pique their interest to look it up, see what it is, because again, I think the more people that know about it, the more people will come.
And has the city council been given an update on the success of it?
I do not believe so. And that's certainly something we could do a general information memo to them just to kind of give them an update on the Age Well Roseville event. And that's certainly something we can think about as we plan the next one, is how do we get them involved? It could be a city council opportunity for them to come out and be a part of it in some way, for sure. So yes, I do like that idea.
Actually, Councilmember Bakucci was
Oh, she
there
was
that-
there. Oh,
yes,
great.
She
Okay.
was. She came.
She's very interested in what we do for
Yeah.
for seniors.
Yeah, she's a big advocate for the senior commission. And the goal number 2 was to get seniors in Roseville computer and smartphone literate to increase communication and reduce isolation. And so, as Laura alluded to earlier, we made the attempt, and we will continue to do that. But there is an opportunity, as she alluded to, with the first Friday of every month out at the Mighty Library, that we can help with the older adult community with their technology. So, but that won't stop us from looking at opportunities to provide workshops or information or presentations or some types of resource or connections to continue to create those opportunities for the older adults to learn how to use technology, how to troubleshoot technology, social media, whatever that might be, because we certainly recognize it's an important thing. All right. And then the third goal is to create strategic partnerships with nonprofit and local businesses, including realtors, digital experts, and resource centers. So I know that's, for us, I don't know if that's for the city, for Parks and Recreation, that's something that we've paid a lot of attention to or reached out to those groups, with exception to working on the Age Well program. So, that's certainly something that I think the commission has some pretty good contacts, I know, and so how we reach out to the commission, and how our commissioners make some of those connections, and then whether it's just a connection or a resource or a contact for us, to kind of start the conversation of whatever it is that maybe you're looking to do, or something, an idea that you have that, I know Commissioner Lola and I have talked about, how do we get with some of the presentations, how do we bring more people in to inform the senior community about a variety of topics. But not only that is to set up a plan to get information about the commission meetings to different groups. So like, for instance, today with Battalion Chief Bradley, what a great opportunity for people to come to attend, to listen, and then potentially even ask questions. And so to try to develop a plan to more, not just putting the commission agenda on the webpage, but how do we get the commission agenda in the hands of senior communities, or how do we just inform them about this meeting, and if they can't attend, where they can find the video and watch it, to get them inside and more involved.
I'm sorry. I think that's very important because Mike Bradley is really a good speaker, and he's a really good negotiator when people come angry at things to explain what can be done. And he's a great face. There's somebody in Rockland also, so that we can hear them. And how can we announce what we're doing to have people come to the commission? We're kind of a secret, I think. People just don't go look at the website unless they're looking for something because they want to go, because that would have been a great topic. And I also think, like Senior First, we use that a lot, and we help them develop and focus their booklet to being more age-friendly. We had a focus groups, and they continue with that. And we have connections with Del Oro, so that if we have them here to get the information out, so people, I think you do this at Sun City a lot, they at least hear what's the opportunities, so they know they have a choice out there. And Del Oro works with the people who really can't pay for it. There's Health and Human Resources, their peer counseling. It's best kept secret. Brian who used to be a former committee, wrote a little article on it, but people don't go look at the article. It's just like the 911. We all get a surprise because we don't look for it. I didn't think to go look for your municipal code for what they do for 911, and I didn't see it anywhere else, or didn't attend something where they presented. And that's many of us. So however we can figure it out, and your library idea with classes, because people tend to read, they know that's a place to go. So that's a really good place, and we work through you.
Right. And I appreciate that, because I think there's opportunity for us to lean on the commission as well to have the commission spread that information too, because as I said, there's a few of you up here that work for senior communities or have some resource contacts that I think to provide you with information to get that down, or to provide us with ideas in other ways and other strategies to get to inform people, not just of events and programs, but really of what we do here in the commission, and when these happen, and provide opportunity for them to come in and listen, and then have an opportunity for public comment too. So I think we'll just continue to collaborate on that, but I encourage, if you have ideas, certainly email me, and we can work through some of that.
One of the things that one of our groups wanted to do was to help seniors with phone numbers. Just have something they can put up, magnet on the refrigerator, about, something that we have like this, a little bit bigger, that they have emergency numbers to call. Now, I reached out to real estate agents. I called 5 or 6, explained to them what I wanted, see if I could get some help, have somebody call me back. Nothing. Unless they're trying to sell a piece of property. I don't want to hear from you. Okay? And I think one of the things would be good if we could get something like this to give out at our next event, and or at least get it started. And then the cost. The other thing was the cost. Who's going to pay for it?
Sure.
A little, take the top 10 numbers and put them on something that can hang on the refrigerator. So if people get into an emergency, fire department, police department, 911, whoever they need to call, it's right there instead of going through a booklet trying to find a phone number. So it kind of hung up there at this point. So what else can we do to get that out there, you know?
We could certainly look into that, and obviously, there's a cost to that, right?
Yes.
But, again, there's always opportunity to partner with somebody or some organization to help subsidize some of that or provide some funding for the purchase of magnets. I have no idea what they cost. But
don't
it's something that we can look into and go, hey, you know what, here's the cost of X number of magnets. We're looking for this much support. And, then it's an additional conversation to go, how do we get support for this? And maybe your name's on the magnet too, right? And so there's a value for whoever might be willing to fund something like that.
He just gave me since I'm on the committee, gave me an idea. We're coming up again, one of my reminders for you, again, is the age-friendly city report. And we're supported with the AARP with that. What a thing that we should highlight. We've been age-friendly certified for a while now. Is at our Age Wellness, we should have a booth and at our booth and talk about being an age-friendly city and all the reasons why. They have 8 categories. They also write articles and feature many things that are going on. And wouldn't it be wonderful if we had an article written about Roseville and being age-friendly and all the things that we're doing with the multiple parks, the multiple recreational ideas, the opportunities that are through our local colleges. There's just so many things here that I think would be a great star in our AARP. I think everybody who's over 65 gets every month, if you aren't an AARP member, be a member because you get all these breaks. And I think it's over 55 now. Anyway, I just think that would be a great way to get some of the word out there.
Absolutely.
Can we get it on a local TV station?
Potentially.
Michael, I have a question for you. And in the magnets, right? Please still call me after this so we can have a conversation. But in the magnets, how do we get them out to people?
That was the other thing, getting them out. They could be at the senior centers. They could be, people come in and ask questions. Here, take this. Getting them out at our booth. But that's only once a year. We want to get them out.
So I would recommend that maybe we look at, I think it's the city of Rancho Cordova. Their paramedics take around, it's called a Vial of Life, and it's amazing. And I think it has something in it that you could put on your refrigerator. It has different things. But if you can call me one day, I'd like to discuss maybe, different opportunities to kind of run through that as well too. But do look up Rancho Cordova's Vial of Life. It's a pretty neat program. And again, I'm sure our fire department would love to carry some around, with us
they
too.
would, yeah.
I think, the
Nicole, we do
libraries.
have the Vial Life program at the Mighty Community Center,
okay.
but we don't have the magnet piece. So,
Yeah.
your thought was going where my thought was going is to provide it with our public service, or public safety folks that when they're in those homes, there you go. There's a
Yep.
magnet. So, yeah,
Yes,
very good
The big
idea.
thing is to come up with the phone numbers and then find out what it would cost to do a magnet. And then, I'll hand carry it around to the fire departments or wherever else we need to go, the police departments, to give them a dozen to start them off. Put a dozen down at the senior centers and down at Maidu. And, I'll even put on a bunny suit and stand outside and give them out, if that's what it takes.
You might put your face on the magnet, Michael.
It might have to be you. And a lot of your potential sponsors will have great relationships with people that make magnets. So, they might even be able to get a reduced cost to that. I think what they would want to hear is where's my name going to be 24 hours a day? Yeah.
I also think as we develop plans for Age Well next year, we ought to be approaching the Chamber of Commerce here in Roseville. There's a new executive director, and they've had some staff turnover, and I think some of these ideas may appeal to people who are looking to start a new trail of their own of accomplishments. So I think connecting up with the chamber to find sponsors, because Kaiser, Sutter, all of these places are members of the chamber, as well as many, many, many small businesses. And a lot of us really prefer small businesses. And so I think that we're a target audience for their businesses, and this might be a way to really help generate both more vendors as well as contributions to any costs that are involved.
So I did speak to the new executive director at the Chamber of Commerce here in Roseville, and she invited us to come to any one of their luncheons or breakfasts. We can take in some material with us, and we can talk to people about it. So often they have like a table that we can put our material on.
And they also have breakfasts where they share. They get up and share this, so that would be great.
Yeah, we just need a volunteer from the commission to go to
You.
the lunches and the breakfasts.
You're the chair. You're the chair. Breakfast.
Lunch and
Before
breakfast, I'm
work.
there. Lunch and breakfast, I'm there.
I'd be happy to attend some of those events.
Okay,
Yeah,
thank you.
I've gone to the breakfasts a few times, and they're really open about sharing.
So I had just a couple questions, and please be patient with me since I have no idea what's going on. But question, is there like other than this, which is wonderful, but it focuses on what's happening at the senior center and the courses. Is there something, a newsletter for seniors that is informational about what's happening in the city of Roseville that we put out?
Not to my knowledge. Nothing that comes from the city of Roseville overall. I mean, I think that might be, I don't want to speak out of turn, but that might be the only publication that is provided for older adults specifically is the FAB newsletter. So that's something we can look into because I'm not sure.
Well, and even if it was combined with the FAB newsletter,
Sure.
other articles, for instance, on the fire department or, how to handle, just little informational articles included. We already have this ready to go. Adding a few things in might be beneficial. And then I didn't know if I see the City of Roseville Facebook posts all the time, and they're really great and wonderful. I didn't know if there was one that might be specific to seniors, because the Facebook page is a very simple way to get content out there really regularly, and that we can also share.
Yeah, for sure.
So
Yeah, that's something. Yeah, we don't have one.
don't
I
have
had to
that.
look at Laura because I wasn't sure, but that's something we can look into. I know that it's been a conversation within our department of, how many Facebook pages we have, and then what tends to happen is so many of the events so many of the things that we try to promote are really multi-generational, and so to not put too many out there to confuse the public, but there might be opportunity to really gear some social media marketing really kind of towards the older adult community, really maybe to make it their own, right, is to kind of, and so.
Or even
Something we
with
can look
that,
into.
right? Again, intergenerational, right? Living in that sandwich generation where you're taking care of your kids and, your older parents, but having articles that are then going to pique my interest, right? So if it's always just events and Wine Down Wednesday, I'm like, hey, that's cool. I know what's wrong with Wine Down Wednesday? That's fantastic for me personally. But, how can I read this article?
For sure.
And if anything, maybe, right, why continue to recreate content, just use the same one. If the city, if the fire department is doing an article about this fee, then sharing it, commenting it, doing things like that, which I think then will, get it. Because, otherwise there are too many, to follow or do different things, and then automatically Facebook's algorithm will, not even let you see it. So I do think I think you guys are smart keeping it, kind of streamlined, but maybe then again, kind of like a directional back, right, all the hip kids are doing on Instagram, takes you back to the bio, gets you back to your senior page. That would, then kind of pique the interest of all those that are trying to manage multiple things.
Yeah, I think I think there's great opportunity for us to look into how we do that, and we will. I mean, it's in our best interest to do that, and we just got to find exactly kind of where our sweet spot is and how we do that efficiently. Right.
There's one way to introduce it, maybe, because I hear a lot of talk about this, because during COVID, a lot of grandparents, me included, got into childcare a lot, picking up and going and doing, because work was done very differently, and Zoom and classroom. Is having classes together. Actually, I kind of put one together for mine, and they want to do this every year now, all of them, which is a grandparent child activity. And you have teenagers, and I have a teenager who's asking for me to find a sketching or a painting class that we can go to together. So introducing that kind of concept might be a way to grab the interest across the whole continuum. So, I don't know, it's just a thought.
Yeah, no, it's a good thought. Yeah, thank you.
Do we have any report for, oh, okay.
I do have a question about the senior resource workshop on May 24th. It's a very short blurb in there. Are you expecting people to pre-register? Is it just 10 to noon, or is it longer? Can you tell me a little bit more about that?
What page is that on?
Page 7.
That is just a very short little resource workshop that we're having. A gal from RX Healthcare reached out to me and asked to do that. She put it together. She has someone coming from Eschaton, as well as somebody coming from, I think, to help with, I think the VA, I believe. But it's just an opportunity for some people to come and ask some questions. There's some professionals in the industry that are going to be there. It's very low key, definitely not like what we had at the sports center. It's just in one room. Whoever wants to come can come. Very brief presentation by each one of those professionals, and then they can ask questions afterwards. So.
So do you think it's going to last an hour or 2 hours, or do you think it is?
I think it'll be about an hour is my guess. And then I kind of put 2 hours in case people want to come and ask questions. So.
All right, so we're going to move on to number 7 on our agenda, if that's all right. And that is the board member commissioner staff report. So staff, do you have any updates or comments for the commission?
Oh.
And commissioners, do you have any comments or updates for the staff?
I would like an update of what we're doing with the age-friendly report. It has a survey and report, there's a process. Before we lose that in all the things that we're talking about.
Yeah, we have not opened that up yet to start working on it, but we know it's on the calendar, it's on our radar to start moving forward with that. I know it's coming up shortly.
Now, only because I wrote the
Yeah.
last one, so.
Yeah, yeah, but it's something we'll get back. We'll circle ourselves back to putting some energy and
All we
effort
had to
into
know
the
is-
age-friendly
yeah,
report.
We had like 3 of the things that we looked at we're doing it all. It's a matter of putting a report, which
Yeah.
the city really needs to do that. We just have to talk about the input.
Right,
And it's
right.
around, all the things that we're doing and that we're talking about, getting people to know the resources,
Mm-hmm.
doing age-friendly things. Transportation was one of them. I can't remember the others right off my head, but they're pretty, what we're doing.
Yeah,
I have a question for Laura. Would this workshop, senior workshop, would that be a place for me to go with my bunny suit and attack somebody to donate to make the magnets?
Yes, you can. But I think we have a laundry list of people that would love to sponsor those. So you don't have to do that if you don't want. We
Want to break out my bunny suit if I didn't?
You can. A lot of the folks that had vendor booths at Agewell, I'm sure would be more than happy to.
Oh, good.
I don't think magnets are super expensive. A couple $100. So
Great
don't know for sure, but
Great
that's my guess.
advertisement.
Yeah.
All right, are we ready for adjournment?
I'll make a motion that we adjourn.
Do we have a
second it.
second? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Anybody opposed? No? All right, well, thank you very much.